Welcome, everyone, to Vintage Noise, where we get into the stories behind some classic designs.
And today we are looking at a car that was just a masterclass in blending aspiration with affordability back in the 70s and early 80s.
We're talking about the North American Ford Granada.
Specifically the 1975 through 1982 model years. This car, it operated on this brilliant concept to sell the look of luxury, but without that big luxury price tag.
Okay, let's unpack that a little.
No,
The
no.
Granada's mission was pretty unique for Ford at the time.
It was.
It had to replace the old, utilitarian Maverick, but it was aimed at a completely different kind of buyer.
Exactly. Ford wanted to basically invent the luxury compact segment. And you have to remember, this was a time when people were downsizing, but they still wanted status.
So how do they do?
Over 2 million sold. So I'd say they understood their customers pretty well. And it all started with a really audacious choice for a design benchmark.
Right. And it's interesting because the idea for this car actually came about before the big 1973 fuel crisis, didn't it?
It did. Ford started research way back in '69. They saw the writing on the wall and knew people would want smaller but still comfortable cars.
And here's where it gets wild. They didn't benchmark a Chevy Nova or a Plymouth.
No, not at all.
They benchmarked a Mercedes-Benz, the 280, the W114 chassis.
They literally wanted it to look like a baby Benz. That was the whole aesthetic for that first generation from 75 to 80. It was officially a compact, but everything about it, the boxy shape, the formal roofline, it was all meant to look like a mini version of their big LTD.
Or a Mercedes.
Or a Mercedes.
So they absolutely nailed the look. But what about the bones of the car?
Yeah.
The platform, surely that wasn't from a Mercedes.
No, that's the brilliant deception in all this. The look was European, but the platform was, well, it was geriatric.
Geriatric.
It was based on the 1960 to 65 Ford Falcon.
Wait, the Falcon? A car designed in the late 50s?
The very same. It was a purely strategic move. By using that old architecture, which they also used for the first Mustang, they saved a ton of money on development.
And they poured those savings into the sheet metal and the interior instead.
Precisely. It let them offer this luxury car on a 109.9-inch wheelbase at a price that people could actually afford.
And I guess it also meant parts were cheap and every mechanic in America knew how to fix it.
That's a huge part of it. But even so, by 1978, they felt the need to update the look.
Why so soon?
Market pressure. The competition was heating up, so they did a facelift, and the biggest change was the headlights. They swapped the single round lights for these square, stacked, rectangular ones.
Which, again, was not an accident.
No, it was another calculated move. It made the Granada look more like Ford's bigger LTD2 and, even more like the Mercedes they were copying. It was all about looking expensive.
Okay, so moving inside the car, Ford made sure the interior lived up to the promise of the exterior, right?
They did. For a compact, it was actually really roomy. You could fit 5 or 6 adults in there, and the trunk was massive by today's standards.
And the features.
That was key to selling the dream. You had choices of vinyl, cloth, and for a little while, you could even get real leather seats.
Unheard of in a compact.
Totally.
Yeah.
And of course, the dashboard was covered in that simulated wood trim.
The classic fake wood. The ultimate 70s luxury signal.
You have to have it.
And this just leads us straight into their marketing. I mean, they were so brazen about it.
It was a brilliant campaign. They just completely ignored performance and focused on how the car looked. The ads literally ask you to compare a Granada ESS to a $20,000 Mercedes-Benz.
Just flat out said it.
Yep. The message was, it looks just as good for a fraction of the price.
And they had specific trim lines to back that up. You had the Ghia, which is the top-of-the-line luxury model.
Right. That one usually had the vinyl roof, more of the wood trim inside.
And then there was the ESS.
The European Sport Sedan. That was the performance look package. It had all the chrome blacked out, and you could get a leather-wrapped steering wheel, a shifter in the center console.
Mm-hmm.
It really looked the part.
Okay, let's talk about the engines. This is where it really separates itself from the Maverick it replaced.
It does. You had the basic straight sixes and the common 302 V8. But the big deal was the optional 351 Windsor V8.
The 5.8 liter.
That's the one. And it was exclusive to the Granada. You could not get it in the Maverick. Ford was signaling this was a more substantial, higher status car.
Now, these V8s weren't exactly powerhouses, were they? I mean, with all the emissions stuff, the 351 was only making, what, 150 horsepower?
Something like that, yeah. They were tuned for smooth, quiet cruising, not speed, but they had good low-end torque.
And I've heard that if you got the 302 with the 4-speed manual, which was rare.
It was actually Pretty fun to drive. And because they were simple Ford small blocks, getting over 200 horsepower with a few cheap upgrades was really easy to do.
So the first generation was a huge hit. But then we get to 1981, and the whole world has changed again.
It really had. The second oil crisis, new government regulations. Ford had no choice. They had to downsize.
And the 81 Granada was a totally different car.
A completely different animal. It lost about 300 pounds, and most importantly, it moved to the modern rear-wheel drive Fox platform.
Which it shared with the Fairmont and the Mustang. So what did that new platform actually mean for the car?
It meant it was finally modern underneath. The old Falcon front suspension was gone, replaced with a McPherson strut system.
Which, for anyone listening, just means it handled way, way better.
Night and day difference. It became a much better car to drive, but it still kept that formal, boxy styling with the quad headlights. The upscale look was still there.
And because all cars were shrinking, it was suddenly reclassified from a compact to a mid-size car.
Right. And they added a 5-door station wagon in '82, which they just borrowed from the Fairmont line. Very practical.
But the engine options really took a hit.
Oh, yeah. Efficiency was everything. A little 2.3-liter four-cylinder was now standard.
And the V8.
The V8 was basically an afterthought. It was a tiny 4.2-liter making 115 horsepower. The writing was on the wall for V8s in cars like this.
They also had a new V6, right?
They did. In early '82, they introduced the 3.8-liter Essex V6. It was a brand new engine for Ford.
Now, there's a little design detail from 1982 that's pretty interesting.
Ah, yes. The blue oval.
Tell us about that.
The 1982 Granada was one of the very first Fords in the U.S. to bring back the famous Ford blue oval emblem on the outside of the car.
It had been gone for how long?
Since the 1930s on North American cars. Its return was a sign that Ford was creating this unified global corporate identity that we all know today. A small thing, but a big deal.
So let's talk about the Granada's legacy. It wasn't just one car, was it? It was really the start of a whole family of cars.
That's right. That platform was used everywhere. The most direct sibling was the Mercury Monarch, which is just a slightly fancier Granada.
But the most infamous relative has to be the Lincoln Versailles.
Oh, the Versailles. A classic cautionary tale in what they call badge engineering.
Explain that. Why was it such a failure? If the Granada worked by putting a luxury body on a cheap platform, why didn't the Versailles work?
Because the price gap was just absurd. A Versailles cost almost double what a Monarch did.
For what? What did you get for double the money?
Not much. Clear coat paint, fancier headlights, and that fake Continental spare tire bump on the trunk. That's about it.
So buyers saw right through it.
Completely. They could tell it was just a Monarch with Lincoln badges. It sold terribly and was pulled from the market pretty quickly. It proves the luxury lie, as you call it, only works if the price is also a lie.
Once you charge a real luxury price, the old Falcon roots become a problem.
Exactly right.
So in the end, the Granada really did its job perfectly. Sales were strong right through its entire run, even in the recession of '82.
It did. It gave people what they wanted, aspirational looks, proven reliability, and a price they could handle during some very tough economic times.
And then for 1983, the name was gone.
Yep. Ford retired the Granada nameplate in the U.S. and replaced it with the Ford Ltd name for their midsize car. It was all part of Ford's big pivot toward aerodynamics and front-wheel drive, which, led directly to the Taurus a few years later.
So we've charted the whole journey of the Granada, from a status symbol compact to a downsized, efficient, mid-size car. It really was a fascinating example of Ford marrying high style with economic reality.
The Granada name served them and their customers very well during a period of just massive change for the whole industry.
We hope you enjoyed this look into the history of the 1975 to 1982 Ford Granada.
And it does leave you with an interesting question to think about.
What's that?
Well, the Granada name disappeared after '82, but the car itself, that second-generation Fox platform car, it lived on until 1986, just renamed as the LTD. So if the name disappears, but the car is still there, did it really end? Or was it just in disguise? Something for you to ponder.